A woman was worried because her cat often went outside in the snow, and she was afraid it might get lost or hurt. But one morning when she followed her cat, something astonishing happened. Pam Ouse was busy working on her laptop, and she was used to hearing the usual sounds of wildlife around her home without getting distracted. However, on that day, she suddenly heard a very unusual scratching and rattling noise coming from outside her cabin. Living in near solitude never really bothered her. Pam had been a lifelong resident of Alaska. Despite the challenging, snowy and freezing conditions, she cherished the isolation and the breathtaking natural beauty of the place. Plus, her two beloved cats, Suitcase and Gizmo, were always there to keep her company. However, today, she found herself home alone, and she couldn't deny that the strange noise had made her uneasy. She cautiously got up and peeked out of the window onto her porch. To her relief, all she saw outside her cabin was gently falling snow. Yet, Pam couldn't shake the feeling that the noise had to have come from somewhere. She opened her porch door and scanned the area. There were no footprints in the snow, and everything appeared normal on her porch and in the yard. Feeling a bit better, Pam was about to return to the warmth of her cabin when she noticed faint cat paw prints that must have been left by Gizmo or Suitcase earlier in the day. The prints were almost covered by the fresh falling snow, and it struck Pam that she hadn't seen either of her cats for several hours. Pam had intended for Suitcase and Gizmo to be indoor cats, but they were keen to explore the Alaskan landscape surrounding their home. Pam often worried that Suitcase and Gizmo might come to harm from the wildlife she often saw around her home, but there was no stopping the cats from going on adventures. Pam knew that cats needed to explore. When they were surrounded by such a vast playground, she couldn't blame them. Besides, the cats always returned home safely. But Pam knew it was unusual for Gizmo and Suitcase to stay away from home for so long, especially when it had started snowing, and she was starting to feel anxious about where the two cats were. Suddenly, Pam heard a gentle tapping sound, and from around the side of her porch, Suitcase appeared. He dashed inside the open door, and Pam smiled as Suitcase shook the snow from his paws and wandered off into the cabin, no doubt to try and warm up. She wasn't surprised to see that Suitcase had returned without Gizmo, since Suitcase was the more timid of the two cats and preferred spending more time indoors. Gizmo was much more sociable, and when he wasn't outside exploring, he could be found sitting in the comfort of the window and watching all the animals pass by. It always made Pam smile to see him do this. Pam did worry that Gizmo's friendliness and desire to socialize might get him into trouble, but so far, he'd been fine. She reassured herself with the thought that Gizmo was just up to his usual tricks, and that he'd be home soon. Pam was still left baffled by the noise. He'd originally come outside to investigate, but she put it down to Suitcase's plea. His paw had probably tapped against the porch on his return home, and she figured she'd just let her imagination run a little wild after spending the morning hard at work. Now Pam just needed to solve the mystery of where Gizmo had got to. Calling out Gizmo's name, Pam scanned her yard again for signs of the curious cat. Just then, a small movement caught her eye. She turned around, and there Gizmo was, contentedly grooming himself on one of the porch chairs. It was like he'd been there all along, but Pam was sure she hadn't seen him. Pam told herself she needed to take a break from her work because she was going a little crazy. Assuming that Gizmo would also want to come inside the cabin and get warm after a morning of having fun in the snow. She called his name again and patted her legs, which usually caught Gizmo's attention. However, Gizmo didn't move. He was focused on something and wasn't even paying any attention to Pam. What had caught Gizmo's attention? Why was he so interested in the tree in the yard? Just then, Pam caught sight of what had distracted the cat. She was completely astonished by what she could see in the trees. She had never witnessed something so wonderful. Gizmo and now Pam were staring at a bald eagle. It was far bigger than Pam had ever imagined them to be, and it looked incredibly majestic with its brown and white feathers and stark yellow beak that shone out from its face. Pam also noticed the razor-sharp talons that the eagle had wrapped around a branch. Suddenly, Pam's feelings shifted from awe to terror. What if the eagle swooped down and grabbed Gizmo? He wasn't a very big cat, and for all his bravado, Pam knew he'd never win against a bird as big as the bald eagle. The eagle could quite easily pick Gizmo up and carry him away, and there'd be nothing Pam could do about it. Without warning, the eagle spread its wings and lifted off from the tree. It was heading straight for Pam's porch. She let out a scream and made a dash for her door. While Pam saw safety in her cabin, Gizmo didn't even flinch, and what Pam was about to witness would stay with her forever. The eagle landed on the railings right next to Gizmo. As the two animals gazed at each other, Gizmo calmly hopped up onto the railings and slowly moved closer to the eagle. Pam admired her brave cat, but she couldn't help but notice that the eagle didn't seem bothered by Gizmo's presence. Could these two animals have met before? Pam couldn't help but think that the cat and eagle looked like they were on friendly terms. Just when Pam believed that the scene in front of her couldn't become any more incredible, a second bald eagle also landed on the railings. Pam realized that the sound she had heard earlier was the eagle's talon hitting the railings. Had the eagles been there all along, perhaps searching for Gizmo? Pam was relieved that the mystery of the strange noise had been solved, but she still couldn't believe the astonishing sight unfolding before her. Frozen in bewilderment at what was happening on her porch, Pam thought she could hear a noise similar to the one Suitcase had made earlier as he'd walked across the porch. Pam would never have been able to guess what was about to happen next. From around the corner of the porch, a beautiful bright red fox appeared. One of the things Pam loved most about her life in Alaska was the abundance of wildlife she would often see close to her home, but she never imagined it would get this close. Pam tried to stay very still, but the fox had already seen her and was cautiously sniffing the air to see if it was safe. Feeling comfortable, the fox walked past Pam and went over to where Gizmo was sitting with the two eagles. Gizmo, the cat, greeted the fox with a happy purr and a gentle head rub, as if they were old friends. Excited to capture this extraordinary moment, Pam rushed inside to grab her camera. She returned to the porch quickly and quietly, relieved to find all the animals still there. The two bald eagles were grooming each other on the railings, and Gizmo and the fox were curled up together, clearly relaxed and content in each other's company. As Pam took pictures of this beautiful and surprising scene, tears welled up in her eyes. 3 different animals, unlikely to be friends, were socializing on her porch. In harsh conditions, they had formed unexpected friendships. Pam couldn't help but wonder how many other animals Gizmo had befriended. What would you have done if you were in Pam's shoes? Why do you think these animals formed such a bond? Please share your thoughts in the comments. I hope you liked this video. Please give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved ones. Also subscribe and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.